Howdy, guys. Attorney Walter Hnot, Disability Resolution PA, the law firm. Now, here's a quick thing. You guys know me. Many of you do. The most viewed and subscribed to disability attorney in America. But what we're going to be talking about today is something that I have spent a lot of time collecting information related to. And this is going to be an overview as to essentially the types of evidence that these CDI units that are part of OIG, the Office of Inspector General, who is a subgroup of the SSA, the Social Security Administration, and what they do to go ahead and basically collect information to essentially audit Social Security disability claimants. That means those who are receiving Social Security disability insurance benefits. That means those who are receiving supplemental security income benefits or disabled adult child benefits, or things within the disability programs under the SSA umbrella. So the question that we are answering in this video is essentially, what types of evidence do CDI units of the SSA OIG use to investigate people and thereafter remove their benefits? But remember, it's not actually up to the CDI unit, and it's not actually up to basically, OIG. Ultimately, that information gets handed over to adjudicators such as DDS reps, such as essentially ALJs, to go ahead and decide if you are still disabled considering this evidence. So the ultimate trier of the fact, trier of the rule in this case, would essentially be the adjudicators, the DDS reps, the SSA ALJs. It would not be the SSA OIG. Now, remember, I don't work for the SSA, but I'm a disability attorney that's read through quite a few ROI reports, which is what CDI groups create when investigating individuals. So what's important to understand here is that as I tell you this information, these are things that I've actually read, gone through, been a part of adjudication with, and things that people have called in about that I've cross-checked against things. Now, with all that said, I just need to say first off, and this is super important, for those other channels out there that are basically copying and then reposting what I say in their own video and making it like it's their own without giving me a citation, please consider the ethical option of just saying, hey, this is from Attorney Walter Hnot at Disability Resolution PA. That's all I'm asking for. You can use my stuff, that's fine, but you've got to go ahead and cite that I'm the one who actually this all comes from. Because you have to remember, this is coming from over $500,000 worth of student loans. This is coming from essentially owning a law firm in almost 10 years and then practicing for over a decade before that with basically, disabled individuals reviewing ADA, things like that before I even was an attorney. So the point that I'm getting at here, and I hope you understand, is that if you're going to copy my content, that's fine. Just please remember to cite to me, okay? For everyone else who enjoys this YouTube channel, please remember to like, please remember to subscribe, click the little bell, and please remember if you want to leave a review, basically to say, hey, I really appreciate this video, go to Google, type in Disability Resolution Law Firm or Disability Resolution Florida, and the law firm will pop up and you click write a review. Let's get right into this real quick. So what is the most common? What is the most common type of evidence used for CDI investigations, which are part of the process for ending Social Security benefits for individuals? Okay. First off, they're looking for fraud evidence. That's kind of your prima facie evidence. That's like your best shot at showing, hey, there's fraud. Hey, we need to restrict this. Hey, we need to go ahead and say, this person should no longer be receiving disability benefits for their ROI report. So things that you should consider categorically when it comes to fraud evidence are working somewhere you claim that you aren't actually working. That's one of the big, no-nos. I've had actual department individuals from the federal government contact me about claimants I just started working with who basically claim that they weren't working, and then they reached out to go ahead and speak with me about the claim related to that person. So that does happen. First off, someone, how does this happen? Like, how do they get the evidence? Someone could report their earnings, or someone that is part of a division of the company could report your earnings. And you could have had a deal where the earnings were under the table. You could have a deal where the earnings would be hidden in some way, fashion, or form. It would be cash, whatever. But someone potentially could at some point go ahead and report your earnings. So that's super important to keep in mind. Now, number two for this is a doctor could note that you are working somewhere. We've had a lot of claims, and I've had a lot of moments where the ALJs will shock the hell out of the claimant where they'll go, well, I saw in the medical record that you had been working at this facility. And I, usually am aware of this. But if they don't, if they collect some document that I didn't have, and they didn't add it to the exhibit list, and then they're going, it's not in these, it's not there. Okay, let me go ahead and drag and drop. And then I have to go look at it. And they're like, okay, well, I'm affixing this, exhibit number to it. Then I'm just like, great, here we go. So the point is, there might be a doctor that notes that you're currently working somewhere, because a lot of people will tell their doctor something that they won't tell other individuals. Or if they're not feeling good, something might slip out that normally they're hiding. Number three, a police report where you are stopped for speeding and talk about a job. Many claimants get into a situation where they're getting a little extra cash from a side gig, it's under the table, etc. And then what happens is they'll be speeding to go ahead and do that job, whether they're dropping off food, a person, getting to work on time, whatever. And then they get pulled over, and then as part of the questions from the officer that shows up in the report that they collect at the SSA for the OIG for the CDI units, they'll say, okay, well, we got a police report here that says you were speeding to get to work. So that's another example of something where it can go ahead and hurt you quite badly. Number four, a deduction on your taxes that goes towards some company activity. Some people don't realize, but they'll be talking to their accountant. Their accountant will automatically put something down, even though they didn't want them to. And then all of a sudden, we've got a deduction for work-related expenses. And now the SSA, through the IRS, is aware that there may be a red herring here. Okay. Number five, you are on someone's company website. So one of the things that happens with company websites is that, and it won't be as obvious, for example, of somebody's image popping up as like one of the workers on the website. Usually the claimants will be a little bit more slick than that. But what will happen is they'll show up in like a party photo where they're like, just had our Christmas celebration party, blah, 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 blah. We, the punch, the fruit punch was amazing. In that instance, what happens is that you are part of something that you are not supposed to be part of. And the first thing that, of course, comes into question is, what were you doing there? Oh, my spouse was there. She works there. Cool. Why are you wearing a tie? And then it just kind of unravels from there. Number six, you are on someone's company photos on Facebook. Now, Facebook is famous for companies to upload quick stuff, right? Basically, quick little, we're in the back office working away. We're in the front office talking to customers, quick stuff. So a lot of people who don't expect to be part of that photo get caught off guard. And then there's usually some sort of employment agreement where they sign something that your name, likeness, and image can be used for the company. So the company covers their butt, but you're not covered when essentially it shows up and the government uses it's just a program that searches all of the, basically all the photos on the internet for faces and then categorizes the faces to the particular person. Okay. Number seven, you are on someone's congratulations notice on LinkedIn. So that's always a funny one, because LinkedIn, somebody will be like, congratulations on your third year of working there. Congratulations on learning that skill there. And these are all forms of evidence that do tend to pop up, which unfortunately can show that you are working someplace, which creates fraud, which, if you were working, shame on you. But, and if you weren't part of a ticketed work program, if you didn't tell the SSA, if, you were outside your 9-month trial work period and, blah, 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 but then the follow-up, you didn't tell the SSA. That's what they're shooting for. They're shooting for that fraud, that intentional, hey, you withheld this information. Now, the next category that we look at is having assets you claim you don't, right? Because that's also part of the fraud situation. People get into trouble with this where they don't realize the county has your name on it. So some people will go ahead and buy a property and not realize that the county has placed their name on it. And now the property is essentially on the website and it's easily searchable by anybody to go ahead and see who, what, when, and where owns that particular property. Okay. And if it's like an asset that you're not supposed to be able to afford, or you shouldn't have had the money for, and things like that, then that might bring up a red herring as to fraud. Another thing is people also get into trouble with the following. When the trust is opened by a court, or by some group that then notifies the government, and it ends up at the SSA or IRS. So some people will go ahead and create trusts. And the problem with trusts is that a lot of people think that they are like the definitive, like stopping wall to, bad things getting to them. That's people think that way about most limited liability corporation limitations as well. But there are ways, right, that the LLC won't protect you. There are ways that a trust won't protect you. And so in this situation, what happens is, let's say that somebody, like a house is put into a trust, and basically you are part of the trust, and you're not supposed to have that asset or that income or whatever. Like there's some reason that you're not supposed to have that, and then all of a sudden that trust gets opened in court. As part of a piercing of the veil of it, to go ahead and figure out what happened, because somebody might have passed away on the property, somebody complained about something, and the thing blew up into a whole big harangue. So in that instance, you have to be really careful with trusts. Next one, number 3, people also get into trouble with this for having work trucks on some record somewhere. So a lot of people don't realize, but that in order to have certain types of trucks, you have to register them or get specialized insurance. Most insurance places do not require you to have a commercial type insurance for F-250s, but F-350s, or basically your Chevy, 2500 versus your Chevy 3500. Usually the F-350 style trucks are more commercial in nature. So if you have one of those as a disabled person and you have to get insurance, usually you have to dip into some sort of commercial insurance to go ahead and insure it. Sure, there are still ways to go ahead and not do that. You can tell them, hey, I'm not utilizing it for this fashion, etc. But the bottom line is, they may use that evidence to show that you have commercial insurance for a vehicle. So let's say you inherited an F-450 and that's your only vehicle. Cool. How are you going to get regular residential, person-to-person insurance for it, as opposed to getting commercial insurance? Because obviously an F-450, F-550, that's a more obvious example of a truck with the purpose of being used for commercial, towing. It could be anything. You could outfit an F-450 and F-50 for most things. Okay. Another thing is where your property is littered with boats, trucks, toy haulers, etc. Not none of them could be registered to you. Some of them could be registered, some of them not. They could be registered to somebody else. Um, you know, when these CDI unit individuals, they drive by your property, they're not usually doing one drive-by, because remember, all of their evidence has to consistently be utilized multiple times, or it has to go through basically them checking it and checking it and checking it and seeing what the variances are. So if they go look at the property and essentially there's, a bunch of toy haulers and stuff like that, and then they get the tags on them and they look up the tags as to who actually owns them, and they go from there, and they may realize, hey, wait, these are all owned by somebody else. Are you renting the space to them? Are they really just for you to use, but they're in somebody else's name, etc.? So that's another thing that can be used as potential evidence of fraud. Okay. Another one is where they tag some car of someone who lives there, but you claim that you live alone. If they do multiple drive-bys and photos, the vehicle that they're looking at, they might see it during the nighttime, right? But they might not see it during the day. And then they'll do 3 or 4 drive-bys and they'll see, hey, look, this thing keeps popping up at night. And if you claim, hey, look, this person doesn't live there, and then they're able to find that person somewhere on some application put down, or some change of address, or some vocational setting where they have to apply for a job, that they put down that is the residence, all of a sudden you have a question where you might have a statement that you are living alone. And then, of course, they then have somebody who is basically renting a room from you without you claiming any income as a result for it. Okay, so that's another thing that could potentially pop up. Another thing is committing literal fraud as a crime unrelated to SSA activities. Like if there's no attachment to, like, you going and doing something wrong for their provision, their rule, their thing, their policy. So let me give you an example of that. So when fraud, occurs, whether it comes from, whether it's fraud on a bank, or it's fraud on a person, a store, or just any business, guess what? They're going to find it. They're going to find you and attach you to it. So a significant amount of disabled individuals commit crimes. Okay. Some of you will say, oh, I don't commit crimes, and that's fine. But a lot of people commit crimes who are on disability benefits. Some, it's a mental thing, some it's not enough money thing. Bottom line, though, the police reports, the court records, and the jail/prison records are attached to the CDI ROI, their report. And the bottom line is that they can get access to that. Now, some of you guys think, you are amazing criminals, absolutely fantastic criminals. But I know fantastic criminals, and I'm let me do this. I will explain to you who are the best criminals because I've worked for famous criminals. I've literally worked for famous criminals. I've worked for absolutely the worst of the worst. But let me tell you, let me explain to you what is a stellar criminal so that you understand, what the differences are here. And remember, I know this because I've worked with these people. I've gotten to meet a lot of different types of individuals. I've met people who have everything from, robbing banks to all those sorts of things to even the more severe crimes where a life is lost. The top notch criminals are definitively masters of disguise. So if you look at like the CIA videos or the FBI videos where they explain like how do they disguise themselves, stuff like that. Yeah, sure. I do mean like they put stuff on their face to change their face, but I mean so much more in the sense of they take on that role of some other person at a level where you won't realize that they're not that person. So they are kind of like the Kaiser Sose, of essentially criminals that are out there. They're able to fake a limp, fake a lisp. They're able to fake a story. They're able to fake the sobbing and the crying. They're able to just think and remember and who they lied to and what they did at a level that is just incredible. And they're able to mimic the stories that make it seem more realistic and make it seem more authentic and original. And people just, you can't tell the difference. You can't tell when they're lying. When you look in their eyes and they're telling you a story, you can see the fear in their eyes. You can see the sadness in their eyes. I don't meet a lot of criminals like that. I just don't meet a lot of criminals like that. But I will say this, I have met some, and I've gotten better at spotting them. And maybe one day we'll do a video specifically on the things that the top criminals are amazing at. But it is always the same thing, the masters of disguise, where they could tell you a story. And I would imagine, see, I always imagined that basically those guys that are at a bar that are like to, hit on somebody, to try and date somebody, those guys are on like the right side of being, the criminal version of great disguise. Because in order to, do the dating thing, when you really think about it, when you break it down, you're essentially, making yourself out to be something or whatever it is to be the best you potentially could be. Whereas these criminals that are creating and doing these horrible crimes, robbing this, taking that, being, a very aggressive person to take something from somebody, those individuals are able to play the part. And what they do, and I had a chance to talk with one of them one time for a little bit, is that they will go ahead and find videos of people who have those types of impairments, who have that type of speech pattern, that type of vocal pattern where, the diction, the syntax, it sounds like somebody from that area. They will take over entire personalities, and just you can't tell. You would not believe that they came from the US, but they grew up 3 streets down the street. I mean, it's just incredible. All right, now we get to kind of the fruit of the tree evidence, which is, basically the not the direct evidence, but evidence. I mean, some of the stuff before was not direct evidence, but now we're going to get more into like the auxiliary type evidence options. Okay, so here we go. Sometimes evidence falls out of a tree, like fruit. The court system says, hey, investigator, auditor, you're not supposed to see that. You weren't supposed to have access to that. That is fruit of the poisonous tree, meaning you can't use it for the purposes of, going against somebody. But sometimes there's just fruit of the tree where it's there, right? And so let's go through some of those options as well. Specifically, police reports that pop up that aren't fraud based, but there's still something that creates a red herring situation. So, for example, police reports about domestic assaults, speeding, drug charges, um, disorderly conduct charges. And remember, some of these may be linear with your impairments. It might make sense that there's a domestic charge, domestic conduct charge against you because of, you're mentally unsound. Some of you, not so much. Okay. A drinking in public charge, police report record of that. Drinking and driving, police report record of that. So just to go through some of these, domestic assault, let's say that you are an individual who is in a wheelchair, and in the report it says you ran after her and hit her, in the back of the head, right? That was the legal fact pattern that was provided in the police report. If you're running after somebody, then that's going to throw up something as a red herring. Let's say you're speeding, right? Let's say that you are required to, on a daily basis, be on heavy medications. And let's say that basically you claim that you are blind, or something like that. That would be a red herring. Drug charges, always a red herring. Always a red herring. Why are you getting drugs? Why aren't you using legal drugs? If you're already on disability benefits, why aren't you using your insurance? Disorderly conduct. Let's say that you got drunk at a bar. You left the bar and you were seen basically, running up and down the street, screaming at people. And you're supposed to have a really bad back and a really bad leg. Let's say drinking and driving, being impaired. Where were you going? Where were you coming from? Things like that. Those types of questions. The classic cop questions that they'll ask you as they investigate you, as you're, peering at with the light shining in your face. Walking down a road late at night and the cops pull up and do a wellness check. Very scary for a lot of disabled people. Very scary for a lot of disabled people. Next one, rental forms that will get people potentially in trouble. So if you have filled out a rental form for a moving truck, and it could be a situation where you're not the one that's driving it, you're not the one that's loading it, etc. Could be a situation where, basically you are getting pulled over, but the person you asked to help you doesn't have a license, and then you switch seats with that person so that you take the ticket so that they won't get thrown out of the country, which is a real situation that could potentially pop up. But the bottom line is that moving truck rental letters. Another rental letter that can really, or rental notice that can really get you is when you rent a tractor. That sometimes can be problematic for you. My favorite is a sky crane. When you rent a sky crane, yeah, that's a cute one. That's a good one. Another one is a mower or a zero turn, being able to rent some of that gear. You can always get out of that one and say, hey, somebody else wrote it. What proof do you have? Blah, blah, blah. Renting an excavator, right? And then putting on the form that you know how to operate them and you've been operating them for so many years. That's also something that can basically ding you pretty harshly there. Or even just the rental of certain implements. Let's say your buddy has a tractor, you want to put a 3-point implement on it and you just rent an implement and they drop it off. That's going to raise some questions that potentially could be used against you as part of a CDI investigation. Other things that do tend to pop up as well. And keep in mind, guys, if you enjoy these videos, if you enjoy sharing the knowledge, having the knowledge, please remember to like the video. Group meetings that you attend where your attendance is logged. Some group meetings, totally fine. Maybe drug abuse, rehab. Maybe it's, basically, how to have better self-image, stuff like that. Or they could be something like a running meeting and you claim that you can't use your left knee, you can't use different areas of your body as a result of arthritis. Another thing, safety certificates. If you earn and get educated in and are able to obtain a safety certificate that you earn for operating machinery or completing certain types of actions, that could be problematic. These are kind of like your Boy Scout, Girl Scout, where they have that little sash where they put like the little achievements on it. That's getting those certificates is kind of like showing that you have the capacity to do those things. Removal of a wheelchair accessible entry from your house and not replacing it. That is a real red herring. Where did it go? Why did it go? What happened to it? It's in this image on Google Maps from a satellite photo, and then it's not. And then it was never replaced. So do you not use it anymore? Why don't you use it anymore if you claim that you have to always be in a wheelchair? Okay. Next one is not going to medical for a year. That is a huge red herring. That's how they catch a lot of the fraudsters that basically keep receiving their parents' retirement benefits. And then basically, their parent hasn't been using their, or been going to the hospital for like years. And then the SSA is like, wait a minute. They'll reach out to the doctor and be like, hey, has this person been here within the past, 90 days, 12 months, whatever? And they'll come back, no, we haven't seen them since, 3 years back. Big problem. Then they'll send out a form. Hey, where have you been for medical? Another one is selling of basically a wheelchair van, like a wheelchair accessible van, and then replacing it with a car where there's no wheelchair accessibility built into the car. That's another thing that's a big red herring for the investigators at the SSA via OIG to go ahead and basically say, hey, what the heck is going on here? Why do you no longer need a wheelchair accessible van? Maybe you have a really good excuse. Maybe you do. And, honestly, I love when you guys put in the comment section, like the excuses that apply to you for these things, because there's usually a reason where somebody will do something that on its face doesn't make sense, but then some of you have a really good reason, and that's awesome. I love when you guys write those in, because it gets my brain going. Okay, I can see where that would work, but I could also see this as a counter argument. Next thing is this: not using your medical insurance for 12 months. So when a lot of you guys go on disability, you're either on SSI or SSDI benefits for the most part. Almost every state is SSI auto attachment. Once you get onto SSI, you're automatically attached to basically Medicaid. Most states at this point. There's very few that don't do that. So as a result of that, the SSA gets a lot of fraudsters for going on disability benefits and then not using their Medicare or Medicaid. That is one of the biggest, auxiliary evidence side things where they're like, okay, well, if you're really that bad, why aren't you getting medical treatment? And a lot of disabled people from 15 to 20 years ago, I've had people scream at me over the phone telling me that they're disabled, and how dare I say that they look like they're not disabled when essentially they haven't been to a doctor in 3 to 4 years. And I say to them, well, how do you get treatment? And they respond by, I don't need treatment. There's nothing they can do for me. And then I respond by saying, yeah, but how do you know that if 3 to 4 years have gone by? I mean, if you don't check in with the doctor, you don't even know what the most recent treatment is. Well, how could you say that? Are you saying that I'm not disabled? Blah, blah, blah. And people will scream at me over the phone. And which is why you guys have probably noticed I have a particularly high tolerance for people losing their bleep on me over the phone or saying something mean. I'm just like, whatever, is what it is. And the point I'm getting at is, you as a disabled person should always continue to get medical treatment. And the most basic thing to go by is that every 3 months you have basically medical checkup. And every 6 months, if there is crisis medical treatment where you have to go to the emergency room, that you have to go to a behavioral center or sanatorium, that you actually do it, because that helps to prove that you still are the disabled person that which you claim you are. Okay. Next one is letting an add-on insurance lapse. So some of you guys will buy into additional insurance options, right? So, and you don't see this a lot with people who are getting a check under $1,600 per month, but with the people with $1,700, $1,800, more like the $2,500 plusers. But when you start to see at that level and up, people are starting to essentially, go ahead and get additional insurance options. And that's smart, because they'll play the game. They'll figure out exactly what they're likely going to need, and then they'll go ahead and buy into that insurance. And then they'll have that insurance option, and getting that ridiculous surgery or that ridiculous medication, it's pennies on the dollar because they bought the insurance. Having those lapse is a heads up to show essentially that somebody might not still have the same impairments that they did when they were found disabled or around the time in which they were found disabled. Next one, being part of a drinking club or a bar mug club. So there are places, they're kind of like more of your folky states, your folky towns. Uh, Stuff like in Maine, stuff like in North Dakota, stuff like that, where basically they have bars that you can be part of a club, a mug club or this club or that club, and they'll go ahead and charge your credit cards every so often. Every month you get charged this much to be part of the club, and then you can go in and drink for a cheaper amount. Just be really careful with that, because recurring payments, if they get paid to look into your financials, which is not very hard for them, those recurring payments from a bar, they don't look good. They don't look good. Okay. Next one, being the only one living at a house with a trampoline in the backyard. When you understand this, they can see directly down, right? And they have better tools than Google, Earth. But the point is, they can look straight down, although Google Earth will do the trick, and they'll be able to see, hey, there's a trampoline, and they're claiming they're the only one that's living in this house. What's the trampoline for? Oh, well, the kids come over sometimes, and the kids use it, and blah 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 blah. Okay, cool. So are you watching the kid? And then we get into that kind of roll down. All right. Okay. Um, Living alone and having skis or snowboards in your apartment. So a lot of these CDI investigators will try to communicate with you, try to get an invitation into your house. And, they've got to basically, for the most part, say, hey, this is what's going on, yada, yada. This is who I am. And they'll start talking with you, investigate. And then, some people will invite them into their house. This is always an absolutely terrible idea because there might be something in there that they get a recorded video of because, they've usually got two cameras, two microphones on them. And what will happen is this, unfortunately, you might have something in your apartment from yonder years when you used to be able to ski, when you used to be able to, whatever, rollerblade, roller skate, whatever, skateboard. And they'll see that and they'll put that into the evidence as suggestive evidence that you are not the disabled person on which you're claiming that you are. So, for example, well, that's my old snowboard. Well, how are you going to prove that you haven't used it recently? Is it, old? Yeah. Is it beat up? Yeah. Is it recently rusty? Well, it's probably rusting right now, sure, but that doesn't mean that you haven't used it recently. So it's a tough thing that you just want to avoid. Okay. Classic pictures of you riding horses, jet skis, snowmobiles, etc. All those things are not helpful for your claim. Obviously, those are the easy ones. That's why I put them towards the end. Another one, getting rescued by the Coast Guard off of a race boat when you have back problems. Not a good idea. Not a good idea. Another one, donating blood and it turns out to not be your blood type. Got a call about that one. That was an interesting situation. I can't go into much detail about it, but if you donate something, make sure that it's A, yours to donate, and B, that you're not committing fraud as you're donating it to get essentially money. So just be aware of that. There's other things too that I could go into, but I want to have a little bit more time in between the phone calls that I've had related to them. But pawn shops are a big problem. They are a big problem for people who essentially want to go ahead and drop something off and sell it. Just be aware that pawn shops can be very problematic. Now, things that I'd like to have you guys consider, things in your life that could be taken the wrong way. And that's how I want your brain to start thinking about this whole CDI unit situation. But things in your life that could be taken the wrong way, and then making sure that you prepare yourself with evidence to show that you're either not using it or it's not yours or you lend it to somebody else or something like that so that you have proof that that item is not something that could hurt or remove your Social Security benefits. Again, Attorney Walter Hnot, Disability Resolution PA. I hope that this was extremely, extremely helpful information for a lot of you. The point is this: we answered in this video what are the types of evidence that the CDI units use when investigating / auditing individuals. The next video I'm going to be actually doing is I'm going to be doing a reaction video where we're going to be watching an actual SSA OIG auditor recruitment video. And we're going to be basically going through and talking about the things that we can learn from watching this video that pop out to us. So this is your test, if you will, as to analysis skills of what you can learn from this video about how they're trying to recruit people, the type of people they're trying to recruit, and things you notice in the background. So this is going to be cool. This is going to be fun. I will see you in about 10 minutes. I'm going to grab a drink, and then we will go ahead and do that video. Again, Attorney Walter Hnot, the most viewed and subscribed to Disability Attorney in America. Please remember to subscribe, hit the bell, go ahead and leave a like. And if you could, if you like the content, consider a review. They really help me with the Google, Google basically analytics. Disability Resolution Florida, Disability Resolution Law Firm, write a review. I always love waking up to those 5 stars. They really, really keep me going. I'll catch you guys in about 10 minutes, and thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye.